Hi, a very good day, everyone. My name is Yifan. I'm the head of science and regulatory affairs in Food Industry Asia. Thank you very much for dialing in for our webinar for today. And this is the very first session of our ingredient innovation series organized by Food Industry Asia. And in today's session, we are going to focus on the topic about prebiotics and probiotics. And on the call with me, I'm very honored to have our two distinguished speakers, which are Mr. Adam Baker, who is the Director of Science and Human Health Innovation. And if you are not very aware of Hansen, they are an ingredient supplier that is specialized in probiotics. And we also have Ms. Anke Sendko, who is the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and Nutrition Communication from BENEO, which is a supplier that is specialized in prebiotics. So you can see that on the call today, we have two very experienced experts who are going to bring us through on the very specialized ingredients. And throughout the session today, we hope to discuss with you on the science behind these ingredients and what are the trends of innovation, and what is the regulatory landscape that we need to be aware of. And finally, hopefully, to also draw some recommendation or suggestions on how we can support the innovation in this sector. So now let's get started. And first of all, I would like to give the mic to Adam first by starting to share a little bit about yourself and your company, and also what is the science behind probiotics. Thank you, Adam.
Great. Good afternoon. Thank you, Yifan, for the introduction, and thank you, everyone, for allowing me to be here today. So I just want to say a few words to begin with. So my name is Adam Baker. As said, I'm working as the Director of Science for Hansen, and I'll get into what the company is in a couple of moments. I've been working for Hansen for 10 years, and focused, as the sign behind me is saying, really on the microbiome, the science of the microbiome. And particularly today, I will be talking about probiotics, which we are very specialized in. And I know Anke's going to be talking about prebiotics, so we won't be touching on that so much. Just a few words about Hansen, in case you don't know. It's a old Danish company founded in 1874 by Hansen, and is really a bioscience company that focuses very heavily on fermentation technologies. We have a lot of work and studies in the dairy industry. We also work in the human health area, focusing a lot on probiotics, bacteria that are beneficial for human health, and also in the animal health and the plant health areas. So really focusing in all these areas, looking at natural solutions. We're very proud of our position as one of the most sustainable companies in the world. And really for today's thought, we are a powerhouse of fermentation. We are producing, here's a fun fact, nearly over 400 million trillion bacteria a day that we're shipping globally around the world. So, but today I'm going to talk a little bit about the science, and I just have one general introduction slide, because what I'll be talking about, and Anke's got some very nice, more focused slides, which tell a little bit about what is happening inside the body. But I'm going to be talking about how bacteria, we call them probiotics, are really in and on us and involved throughout our entire life. And this small animation is just saying that really, from the moment we're born, we're now understanding how bacteria and also prebiotics and things are building. The microbiome is an incredibly important part of what goes on within you and on you, and how these bacteria interact with you throughout life is very, very important for your health. And we're understanding more and more about this all of the time. So I do a lot of research, and the company's researching how at the start of life, probiotics and prebiotics are very important for building up good bacteria within you, what that means for health in general, and then what types of bacteria do we need and use and are available throughout life and as we get older. And the word probiotics is these beneficial, these good bacteria that we can actually provide, that can actually play a role. They work within your microbiome, and they actually can sort of support health, or they can bring health back, or we can look at them in different ways. So that is something that Hansen is extremely focused on. And today we're going to be talking about it I will be talking about it from that point of view. how bacteria are really, really important, how we study them, and really how we're using them and how we think about them in the regulatory sense, because the science is absolutely exploding around the microbiome, and that means it's exploding around prebiotics and probiotics. The understanding of how these bacteria and other factors are really, really important. And maybe not just in gut health or even in some of the immune areas, in other areas. And that's what I'm going to touch on today. So as we learn more and more and we develop more and more science, we really maybe have to rethink how we're actually using these products. So really excited to be here today. And I hope that was a okay brief introduction for Christian Hansen and science.
Thank you very much, Adam. And I will have some follow-up questions based on what you have said here, but I'm going to address that a bit later after we hear it from Anke as well. So Anke, I'll pass it on to you to also introduce to us about what is prebiotics and what is BENEO doing about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad to be with you here. If you move to the next slide, already this is reflecting actually our starting point in the business. BENEO is working together with farmers in order to harvest ingredients, plants like the chicory root, also the sugar beet, rice and wheat, and we make specialty ingredients out of that. So for the chicory root, which is the most important for today, because this is the source of the prebiotic, we extract an undigestible carbohydrate that is the dietary fiber in that root. And this has particular advantages for our gut, for the microbiome, and for our body in various directions. So we started with research in this direction already in 1995. So 25 years of research going into this direction. And this reflects also the body of evidence that is related to that. We also, of course, in parallel, look for the technical application that is related to that and to the ingredients that we are offering. This kind of innovative work requests also a lot of work together with authorities. And my role in the whole thing here is that bringing the science and the legislation together and explaining to all the stakeholders what the science is behind, so that people are understanding that this is not a fairy tale and too good to believe, that this is based on sound science and long history. I think that is the most important. So I am speaker for the BENEO Institute, which was founded in 2009 in order to give one word for these three areas of competence that are needed: the nutrition science, the nutrition communication, so explaining the science, and legislation, carrying it to the authorities and dealing and explaining with that. Now, the prebiotic definition, this was not founded by BENEO or any other company. This is something that was created by experts in this type of research that are active around the world. And they organize themselves in an organization that is called ISAP, the International Scientific Association for Pre- and Probiotics. And they develop consensus statements in conferences. And I use here the latest one from 2017 that gives the simple, very simple, but nevertheless demanding definition of what a prebiotic is. It's a substrate that is selectively utilized by host microorganisms, conferring health benefit. So you see two elements in here. It's the selective element, selective growth of beneficial bacteria, and this has to be combined with a health benefit. The health benefit can be looked at in various ways, and we will deal with that. Here, a simple illustration what happens if you eat a prebiotic or a food that contains it. It is reaching the large intestine, and there it starts to feed the organisms that are there. And the beneficial bacteria, the Bifido and Lactobacilli, they have a special enzyme that give them the advantage of immediately using this, and they love it. It's their preferred dish. So they multiply and grow by multiplying. And by this, they are becoming more and more. So this portion of the beneficial bacteria is increasing. And you can also do that by swallowing, like it is with probiotics. There also you increase the content of the beneficial bacteria. This is then influencing the environment of the gut directly and what is happening there. And as we know today via the gut-brain axis, it is reaching all kinds of organs in the body and starts influencing that. It's a very exciting area of emerging science. But I think the key point is we have a new organ here, the organ of the microbiome. And this is something also new in nutrition research, new for legislators as well. And I think that is where we are hitting the contradiction of traditional thinking on one hand side and emerging science and established new science on the other side that needs to reach the consumer. The consumer is indeed waiting for it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I think that.
Thank you very much, Anka, as well, to explain to us about the science behind it. So before I start my first question, just let the audience know that near the end of the session, we'll be able to have a short Q&A for about 10 minutes. So in the meantime, if you do have any questions for the speakers, feel free to type in your questions in the question box, and I will address that near the end of the session. So let me get started. I would like to ask that both of you on first on a very practical question. The question is that as a consumer, what is the need for these ingredient when we talk about probiotics and prebiotics? Is that really necessary for us to take it as an addition of what we already have in the regular diet? Yeah, and you were also saying that science in this area is also exploding and advancing. So what is science telling us in terms of the need of these ingredients?
Who would you like to start? Me?
Yeah, let's start from Adam.
Okay, good. Okay, great. That's a great question. Thanks. So do we need these supplements? Well, I think I maybe in my one short animation, maybe I didn't get to touch on it, but what we see through life is you can see, and Anka's explained very beautifully, the new organ of the microbiome, the bacteria and the prebiotics, how they're working together, and how this is functioning as an organ and supporting health through life. There's a lot of things we do in our day-to-day world, or a lot of things that's happening that can actually either cause disruptions or is causing challenges. So even in our normal day-to-day life, if we're saying we're healthy, if we're taking antibiotics, if we're taking other medications, if we're feeling stressed, there's maybe some pollutions and things, you can affect the microbiome. You can affect that organ. You can cause what's called maybe a dysbiosis, a disbalance. Anka touched on it, the good bacteria versus the bad. You can imagine quite clearly if you take an antibiotic which knocks out a lot of bacteria, you are going to disrupt what was a functioning working organ, and it has to rebuild itself and things. So I would say there's many opportunities. There's reasons when you're first born. That is why when you're born, there are special prebiotics in mother's milk, which is encouraging the growth of these very good bacteria to encourage the growth of this microbiome. There's things you can support there, but then as you take maybe antibiotics and other things, these are reasons to also support and bring back either using probiotics themselves, the bacteria, which you know are beneficial, we've got science behind, or a prebiotic to stimulate some of these bacteria. So I would say there's always a need we can use to support health, and I think Anka also touched on it with nutrition. healthy nutrition to keep these types of diverse bacteria or prebiotics coming into our body. It's just a very, very healthy well-being to be. But I'll let Anke answer from the prebiotic.
Yeah, I completely underline and join your opinion in that direction. I'm a nutritionist from training, so I know that people are coming and researchers are coming from a history of if you lack something like vitamins and minerals, you really get ill. You may even die. You develop illnesses, and therefore you need to eat enough vitamins, minerals. You need to have enough calories. And we are now in a phase where we are realizing it's even more. Yeah, and the microorganisms in our gut are really not touched by nutrition research for long. Even when research was started, it was more thinking into eventually a medical direction rather than this should belong to our daily life. And I think now we know a healthy microbiome, so a healthy combination of those organisms that are inside us is crucial for health. And we also see, you touched it already, Adam, with dysbiosis, a lot of illnesses are connected. So you can also interpret it in a different way. If you take care of the beneficial bacteria inside yourself, you surely support your health in a general way. Yeah. And of course, you can look at certain endpoints like digestive health, immunity, many others. But I think it's crucial that with this fact of gut-friendly food and gut-friendly food supplements, that you really do something good for you, and this is also reaching the consumer now, in particular in Asia. So that's
Thank you.
Very exciting topic.
Right. Yeah, thanks for that answer. Yeah, it's really helpful for us to understand how probiotics and prebiotics are helping us to kind of fight against the bacteria that are growing in the body, so that we also reduce the risk of being infected by the bad microbiomes and maintaining the long-term health. Yeah, thanks for that. And I would like to move on to ask you about how do you see currently in terms of the trend of innovation, and probably we can start by talking about how do you see in terms of the consumer trend in these products and ingredients, and also do you see any like difference in terms of the consumers' insights when we compare Asia with the rest of the world, or even within Asia? Is there any particular markets that you see some interesting consumer trends coming up? Shall we start from Anke first?
Yes, yes. We looked into the consumer trends, of course, and we see a growth all over. So there, I think this is very, very exciting. It also fits into the current difficult time, where people are realizing that there is a link between microorganisms and the gut and the immune system. But it goes beyond. So in that way, we see all over an increase in interest of the consumers in these topics, and I think Asia is the top country, or the top area, the top region of development. Why is this so? This is, of course, my interpretation, but I think Asia has a long history of thinking in a holistic way. Also, the connection between the gut and the rest of the body, other organs in the body, is much more to the surface than it is in other regions where consumers still need to learn. And therefore, I think Asia is really the top of the development, and other regions are quickly catching up, I would say like this. Yeah, you see currently in our research, actually in Europe, quite some increase in products that are reaching the market. There, I think, if you look for the last year, Europe is the lead. But overall, if I take the whole picture, it's Asia that is in the lead according to the research that we have. I don't know if this is in line with your views, Adam.
Very much.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from Adam.
Yeah, that's great. And I would say, absolutely, we're seeing, you know, we are seeing such an understanding. You know, I have this word behind me, and it was when I started working at Christian Hansen, people were challenging it, the knowledge of it, the use of it to the consumers. I would say absolutely in the Asian area, the microbiome is very well understood now. The science behind, as Anke was saying, the beneficial bacteria. What we're seeing is, and Anke touched on it as well, though, I wouldn't call it an explosion now, but almost that, from the focus on gut health that we have, the traditional, and I'm coming from the probiotic world where we understand bacteria and the gut health, and that's how we have it in Europe, to a more holistic approach, as Anke's saying, that it is in organ and it is so fundamentally important in other areas. And what we're seeing now, and I'm seeing, because I am truly a little bit more to the science, Anke does a great job with communication as well, and legislation and the science, how we're seeing this move now. Yes, we work with beneficial bacteria and gut health. It immediately and directly affects, and this is where we touch on other health areas, the gut-brain axis, anxiety, stress, things that are so important to us, cognitive development and recognition. And I think I would say that what we're seeing is these are leading positions that we're seeing, particularly in Asia, that's being embraced, whereas it's a little slower. We're still back in sort of gut health in some other areas, whereas really the translation of understanding that a fundamentally healthy microbiome within you and the small molecule and the things that the bacteria are doing in the prebiotics and the signaling is directly affecting other health areas and protecting you also from diseases. And this is something, of course, I think particularly in Asia and China, we have a long history of these types of understandings, sometimes more than in Europe where we're focusing on gut. So we see an explosion of interest. Everybody is taking a new look at immunity, realizing that this is really something that's important, but that still to us is a little bit traditional with gut health and immunity. And now we're seeing this very rapid expansion, and I would say this, it could be being led into other areas where the microbiome is important, and it's playing important roles in so many different areas, from you know, breastfeeding and before the baby is born, even in pregnant mums, in late gestation, what is happening, and we're seeing products that will be wanted to give to the mum in order to support the baby's health through the first month. So people understanding what is happening there, all the way to elderly, where we're suddenly seeing explosion, how we can maintain the microbiome, keep cognition, and that's maybe dampen these low-grade inflammations, these stresses that we have in life, all of these areas. And from my understanding, from what we're seeing, Asia is embracing these areas very much. We're seeing more, not radical, but maybe a slightly more, you know, ambitious types of products, combinations, symbiotics, fitting things together around nutrition. But Anke's also touched on it. That's the challenge we have, and I'm hoping we're coming back to it in the questions. We now deal with the fact that this microbiome is preventing or supporting or making sure diseases don't happen. And the research we have is going that way. So we have to help the legislators, as the consumers are already starting to understand. We can demonstrate the science, but we have to sometimes use disease models to show it, and we are. But then that becomes a big problem for us when we want to take it to the market. So I think, you know, that was preempting a little later, but yes, hope that was okay as an answer.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the time, and due to the limit of time, I think that I probably would need to also shorten my questions, but also appreciate if our speaker can also give your answers in a more concise way. Yeah, and my next question is that, so you have talked about the kind of the discovery in terms of the health functions beyond gut health and the immunity in terms of these ingredients as well. So I want to ask you also, how do you foresee the innovation is going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years, besides what you have mentioned in terms of these new health functionality? Is there any other directions that we should be aware of in terms of probably like in terms of the actual product application? Because in the past we see a lot of application more in the dairy category, but is it being expanded to other category? And that also, has there been any like rapid development in terms of the discovery of a new type of probiotic strains or other prebiotic ingredients? So what are the kind of innovation trends that we need to be aware of?
And I should do a short answer.
Yeah, let's start from Ed.
Okay. No, I think let's go in the opposite directions. The understanding of the microbiome, new strains, we're understanding a lot of new strains which are deep in the microbiome. They're called strict anaerobes. They are important, they're interesting, but they're a long way from legislative and into the marketplace for the next 3 to 5 years. Very importantly, you touched on it, Angus touched on it, Lactobacillus bifidobacteria, the bacteria we see in dairy products, but also in our food supplements. They are key members of the microbiome. They are also microbiome science. They are with us today. We are studying now very hard, and that's what's coming out with these types of bacteria that we already know and are eating in functional foods and in yogurts, but can isolate as well. We're getting more direct science on them as direct supplements or in combination as symbiotics, which could be with a prebiotic as well, or with what they produce. So it's called the postbiotic, the fermentates they make. We see it in the areas, not just of gut health. Gut health is the fundamental starting point, but where we're seeing the rapid growth is in, growth, cognition, gut-brain axis in terms of stress, mood, and beyond. We already have these things. So these are key areas. So infant health as well, because the building of the microbiome, as you see, is key for long-term health in terms of that's the times your immune system is being rebuilt. It's the time your neurological pathways are being built. So we're understanding more about that. I think these, for me, to keep it concise, are very key areas for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I join you with, sorry.
No, I was just asking whether you have any extra points. Yes, please go ahead.
I join you with respect to the research areas and innovation areas, but I still think there is a lot we can do in order to support gut health and the microbiome directly. I also, in the case of now the prebiotics and the chicory root fiber in particular, there you have a combination of a dietary fiber on one hand side and the prebiotic effect, as this is feed for the microorganisms. And it is food for us. And actually, it's a dietary fiber. So it's about fiber enrichment in product applications, also partly sugar reduction at the same time in recipe development. And so there I'm thinking beyond symbiotics and food supplement. I'm really thinking about yogurt, a very big trend in Asia. In Europe, we see new product developments, in particular in the area of breakfast cereals, for example. In the US, we see snacks getting very popular in order to enrich our diet with prebiotic, and therefore I think it's on one hand side a food supplement, but it's also general food items in food and drink that can help you to get the pieces during the day, so that you can enrich the way you like it according to your own desire.
Thank you, Anke. And my next question would be on the regulatory issues. Yeah, and probably Anke can give you a little bit more insights in this area. So, could you share with us what is the current regulatory landscape in pro and prebiotics, and where do you think that the direction of regulation should be going to in order to respond to the consumer demand and new science and evidence in this space?
Yeah, the situation in Asia and even around the world is very scattered. And you're dealing with a lot of individual items. And that's also nature, because every country needs to make decisions for their own population. So it's in the nature of the regulatory system. I think where we all have common interest is to support health for the consumers. And this is in the interest of public health, and it is in the interest of those companies that are investing in making foods that are better for you. So in that way, I think it's finding this common ground, explaining the science that is not necessary common knowledge, but it's also not a fairy tale. And I think this is what innovation is about. And what I see lacking in the current situation is that there is no room for innovation when it comes to legislation. Yeah, if you are touching trends, trends are short term. If I think about fashion, yeah, what is on vogue this year is not anymore next year. We need to have a sustainable collaboration together in order to take the advantages that are coming out of this research. And we cannot wait for 20 years. This is too slow. We need to have an openness in this discussion and a more quick pick up for the future. I think this is what indeed is needed, and it is in the interest of all stakeholders to do that. Everything needs to be based on sound science. So that is a precondition, no doubt about that. But if the sound science is there, then there should be a way to find and create legislation that gives this room for innovation and that allows to explain to the consumer and that gives approvals and find also, let's say, exemptions. Just to give you an example from another area, if yes, everyone is talking that sugar is not good for you, but there are sugars that are good for you. So then they need to be exempted from this hype of avoid sugar, because there are some goods in it. And so in that way, we need to create an environment that is looking for solutions together in the interest of the consumer. I once heard J.R. Henry saying, food is our new medicine. And it is indeed the way that we can support health. And I'm not talking about treating illnesses. I'm talking about supporting health and creating the regulatory environment that is flexible enough and allows this. Yeah, so yeah, I give the word to Adam because I'm very much engaged in this need for innovation room. Yeah.
I'll be very quick.
Okay.
Or I'll be very quick. It was fantastic what Anke said. I think we see in certain regions like Asia Pacific, you are starting to get claimed. We can see how, and I'm hearing about the use of science, innovation, systematic reviews is starting to build this type of infrastructure that you can, in certain areas, get this legislation to start and work. But I think Anke's maybe totally right in the sense that we can't be so slow. Things are moving so fast now. We also, from the innovation front point of view, you asked the question to me, are we going to see new strains? That's very difficult. At Christian Hansen, we work extremely hard. We build a lot of science behind existing strains and strains that are coming through. But if they're not on an expected list, if they're not already on approved lists of things, it's very difficult for us to start to move into newer areas. And these, I agree with what Anke is saying, but these, are not going to be it's trends, it's coming in. So we're understanding the new science, but how to bridge this, I think, is a fantastic ambition Anke has, where we say, how do you get legislation to catch up, because the consumers are going super fast now and really understanding and wanting these things. That's what we see at Christian Hansen, and in Asia Pacific you're seeing, especially, people understand and they want it. We're showing the science, but now we have to get that so that we can get these products safely and properly into the marketplace, and that is a challenge when you're quite limited sometimes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adam and Anke. And I fully agree with you, because that while looking at a trend and understanding about it, it's also about how do we respond to it. And that you certainly have addressed the need to actually encourage the experts and the regulators and the stakeholders in this community to also have more communication and the dialogue to understand about the science, and that be able to also translate it into the actual system that will facilitate the growth and innovation in this sector. Thank you very much for that. And I think there's also a lot more we can do on that as well, in terms of improving on the dialogue and communication. So now let me move on to take up some questions from the floor. And I do have a few questions. So I probably will only be able to take on one question from the floor. And this one is asking about artificial sweeteners. Yeah, probably it is referring to like sugar, alcohol, and that kind of ingredients. So the question is, there are some studies that suggest artificial sweeteners may affect microbiome in the gut. How strong are these studies, and is it really a concern to consume artificial sweeteners? And how about natural sweeteners as well? Is there any studies to find out how that affect microbiome? So probably this question can be addressed to Adam.
Not to me. I thought Anke was going with sugars, but okay. No, absolutely. I think I come from the point of view that we see a lot of effectors sometimes that can be affecting microbiome, particularly from drugs that people take. And I'm sure some of the artificial sugars, I've seen some of the science which is looking at shifts and changes in microbiome results based on that. You have to then interpret what that means in terms for your health and long-term health. But we see that type of science. So of course, natural sugars and natural prebiotics and fibers, this is where we do some studies, but Anke is much more focused in this area, so I'll probably pass over the word, because we do use them and we like natural. We are understanding which bacteria, we come from the bacteria point of view, we're learning which probiotics and bacteria grow and like to work with which type of fiber or sugar. But maybe Anke would like to talk as well, so as we have only 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I think you need to differentiate, because you mentioned polyols, sugar alcohols. They are not in this debate. Actually, we know from isomalt that it is a prebiotic. So we saw that in a human intervention study, that bifidobacteria are increasing. And those ingredients are indeed reaching the large intestine. There are some studies that are talking about intense sweeteners that are influencing the microbiome. And I think more research is needed in that direction to see it more clearly. For me, from a practical point of view, most of those intense sweeteners are absorbed in the small intestine. And the amount that is really reaching the large intestine might not be high. And we are talking about milligram anyhow, what you put into the food, because of the high intensity of the sweetness. So currently, I would say we need more research to get this more clear, how the mechanism is and what it means. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Anke, and for clarifying on that for us as well, in terms of the need to actually have more study to really substantiate that. And we're just 1 minute towards the end of the session. So, excuse me, I would like to thank you very much for joining our session for today. And I'm sorry if we are not able to answer some of your questions. We'll try to get in touch with the speaker after the session so that we can respond to you separately. And thank you very much, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.